We are live on Facebook. So good morning. Welcome to the PT on Ice Daily Show. My name is Dr. Jordan Berry, lead faculty for cervical and lumbar management courses. Today for Clinical Tuesday, we're talking TLJ, or the thoracolumbar junction, mobility versus motor control. Okay, so before we get started, I just want to mention a couple live courses that we've got coming up over the next few weeks. So this weekend, we've got 3 different spine courses coming up. So for cervical spine management, we've got Zach Morgan. It's going to be down in Olney, Maryland. And for lumbar spine management, Jeff is going to be down in Baton Rouge with our friends from Delta Physical Therapy. And then Justin Dunaway is going to be teaching total spine thrust manipulation in North Platte, Nebraska. So all 3 of those are coming up this weekend. So any last minute signups are for sure welcome. So if you haven't taken any of our spine management courses, feel free to dive into those. And then of course, coming up in 2 weeks, we've got the sampler, March 27th and 28th out in CrossFit Hendersonville in Hendersonville, Tennessee. We are really looking forward to that. It's such a cool opportunity, that happens once a year for all faculty to get together and teach our specialty content. So every faculty member will have a certain section that happens throughout the weekend where they can share some of their specialty content that isn't taught necessarily in any of the other courses. So let's dive into the content today. So again, it's Clinical Tuesday. We're talking thoracolumbar junction, mobility versus motor control. This is going to be a 2-part series here. So I want to share a few exercises that we really like to use in the clinic. Half of those exercises are geared towards mobility for the thoracolumbar junction. The other half is geared towards motor control. So it's going to be a 2-part series. Today we're going to talk mobility. Part 2, we'll talk motor control. So just to make sure we're all on the same page, when we're talking thoracolumbar junction or the TL junction, you might hear it be called Main's syndrome. M-A-I-G-N-E-S, so Main's syndrome. Okay, I think this is an area that clinically just doesn't get as much love as what it deserves. It's an area that's commonly missed in the clinic because it's misdiagnosed. So the thoracolumbar junction, for multiple reasons, due to the muscular attachments in the area and due to the wiring from the nervous system, can cause symptoms in a lot of different areas in the lower quarter. Anything from low back pain to lower abdomen pain to posterior lateral hip pain to issues in the groin and testicle and labia pain. So a whole host of areas in the lower quarter that can be caused from the thoracolumbar junction. Can especially mimic symptoms like from intra-articular hip pain or lumbar radiculopathy. So especially bilateral symptoms, if a person comes in really with symptoms in any of those areas that we mentioned, I definitely want to have Main's syndrome or thoracolumbar junction dysfunction on my hypothesis list. Okay, so let's talk today, again, mobility versus motor control. So once we've diagnosed that area might be the symptom generator, or we'd like to get some movement into that area, what are some exercises that we like to use? Okay, I think this area, the TLJ, can become dysfunctional or irritated for 2 primary reasons. Okay, the first one is that area does not have enough mobility. Okay, so think about the golfer who's having a lot of rotational movements through the spine. If that area in the TLJ is a bit stiff, it can become irritated because there's so much repetitive force going through it. What we want to get in there is mobilize that area and get it moving and get some more mobility. Versus the other end of the spectrum, someone that has a lot of mobility, we typically see in the clinic that TLJ can become a hinge spot. So think about the overhead press, where if a person's lacking some midline stability, they use the TLJ to assist in some motor control and some midline stability. So then what we'd want to do there is actually use exercises that would allow the person to learn to control that area. But today, again, we're talking mobility. So we're going to take the golfer who's a bit stiff in the thoracolumbar junction, okay, that lower thoracic spine. We want to get some movement in that area. All right, so we're in the clinic. We've done maybe some manipulation, some dry needling, some decompression work with cups. And what do we want to follow that with? So I want to show you 4 exercises that I use all the time in the clinic to follow up some of the manual stuff I'm doing, to continue to get some movement in that area, and that's what the patient is also going to go home and work on. So Kelsey's going to come in. She's going to demo these 4 exercises for us. All right, so number 1. Again, these are all pretty simple, but I think that we can nuance them a bit using some bands and the way that we position our body so that we can target the thoracolumbar junction a little bit more efficiently. So again, the first one is a banded cat-cow. So Kelsey's going on all 4s, okay? She has the band pinned around her hands, okay? And then, let me lower this down so we can see here as well. So we've got the band pinned around the hands, and then it's also up here wrapped around the thoracolumbar junction. So just giving Kelsey a bit of feedback. So when she presses into the band and then pulls down, she's feeling exactly where we want the movement to happen. Okay, so I'm not cueing Kelsey to necessarily completely round her spine. Go ahead and fully round, Kels. Not necessarily that. I want her to focus the movement exactly where the band is. So just press into the band. Yep, and try to pull the band down towards the floor. Perfect. So that's number 1. So that's our banded cat-cow with a bias at the thoracolumbar junction. Okay, exercise number 2, very similar, but now we can get some flexion working into the system as well. So same setup here where the band is around the hands and then it's wrapping around the thoracolumbar junction. I'm going to cue Kels to push into the band and then start to rock back. And this is an active rock back. So she's not just pushing with her hands, she's thinking about contracting her abs as well, pushing herself back with her core. It should feel like almost a really hard sit-up. Let's go through that one more time, Kels. Pushing through the band and then using her core to rock back. Okay, so that is our banded rock back. I love both of those exercises. It gives the patient some really good feedback on what they should be feeling while they're doing these exercises in the clinic. Okay, number 3 is one that we should all be very familiar with. It's a prone press up, but I want to be detailed on the way that we do it. So when we typically use a prone press up, right, we always want to go to in range. The reason being is that we know that we can create significantly more symptom reduction if we can press all the way to the top and then blow out our air, right? But that's when we're biasing the lumbar spine. Here we want to bias the thoracolumbar junction. So I actually don't want Kelsey to go all the way into full extension on the press up. I want her to stop in mid-range, go ahead, so that the motion arrives right at that lower thoracic TL junction. She can hang out there, blow her air out. And again, now we're not necessarily doing it for symptom reduction. Think lumbar radiculopathy where we'd want to go all the way to in range. Here, we're stopping short intentionally, so that motion arrives right in the thoracolumbar junction, can blow our air out and get a nice deep stretch into extension in the TLJ. All right, so that's number 3. Now, number 4 is a rotation exercise. So I like to do this in sitting. Make sure we can see that here. I can get myself out of the way. So Kelsey's sitting right here. We're using the same band that we used for the rock back and the cat-cow. Kelsey has it wrapped around, and we're set up the same here that we would for like a cervical snag where our arms are crossed. Okay, so if Kelsey is going to rotate towards the left, she is stabilizing the band on the left side of her body with her right hand while she's pulling into left rotation with her left hand. So again, one hand stabilizes on the band while the other pulls into rotation. You could hit that bilaterally as well. So if Kelsey, if you switched it up, we just reverse our hand position, bottom hand stabilizes, and then the top hand pulls in the direction that we're rotating and encourages that rotation. Thanks, Kels. So again, those are our top 4 exercises that I like to use in the clinic for thoracolumbar junction mobility. Okay, following some of the manual interventions that we're using. So again, that was part 1. That was the mobility side. Okay, we'll come back in a couple weeks with part 2 where we talk about motor control and how we can use exercises not necessarily to increase range of motion in that area, but to gain some control and strength around that area. All right, thanks everyone for watching. Have a great day in the clinic.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.